Is it legal?
Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes and today I'm finally going round the garage to fit some new parts to MOREDOOR, my MOREDOOR Mk2 Escort. I mentioned in a recent video that I've got this box of parts that I bought from my friends at Burton Power, which are still here being stored in my parts storage room, which sometimes also doubles as a kitchen. It is already 12 noon and it does get dark really early at the moment in England because we're in winter, but the weather's looking good at least. And I won't need to stop off at McDonald's today because Kat made me a lovely fried breakfast this morning. Although McDonald's stopped serving breakfast about an hour ago anyway. Anyway, I'm going to pull my finger out, go and get Maude out the garage and drive to my other garage so that we can start work. Maude's clutch rattle is getting so bad, I don't know if you can hear it. That's the fuel pump obviously, but you can hear that rattle. Put my foot on the clutch a little bit, it goes away. So yeah, I think I'm going to order a paddle clutch kit tomorrow and a new clutch fork, just in case I need to drop the engine out, take the gearbox off and change the clutch, because I'm not going to be ready to put the new ST engine in for a while. And obviously I don't want to have to change the clutch until I do that. But I also didn't want to have to change the flywheel until I put the new lump in, and I had to do that the other week. So I think I'm better off buying the clutch just so I'm ready to do the job if I need to, but hopefully this clutch will last until I am ready to put the ST lump in. Alright, so I'm around the garage and I've already made a start. I've got the front end jacked up and I've got both front wheels removed. I did plan to come round here and tidy up my garage before I started work today, but it's quite late in the day already, so I want to crack on. Before I start, I think I'll just show you the parts that I'm fitting today. So I've got a pair of these rubber top mounts. Now these are not adjustable, but I'll explain why in a minute. And to fit those, I've got these adapters that basically fit into the spherical bearing. One at the top, and then this one at the bottom, and then the hole in these adapters is the same size as the top of the shock absorber. I'll just compare them to the ones that I've got fitted. These have obviously got the camber adjustment, and as I've explained before, the problem with these is the spherical bearing doesn't rotate, so I actually have to run them with this nut slightly loose, which obviously isn't ideal. I'll try and get it so that the nut is loose enough so that it allows steering without it binding, but not so loose that there's any play. But yeah, that's not ideal. As I'm going to be working on the front suspension, I thought it was time to put a fresh set of trap rod ends on. And as I'm not going to be running camber adjustable top mounts anymore, I've got myself a set of adjustable track control arms. Basically, you can adjust this and it lengthens the track control arm, which then pushes the bottom of the wheel out to give you camber, whereas those top mounts that are fitted now push the top of the wheel in to give you camber. Now these adjustable track control arms came with these Polysport bushes for the anti-roll bar to go through, and they come with this hardware which requires you to drill out your cross member so that this bolt fits through, and they come with these spacers basically because this rose joint is thinner than the original bush that would be fitted there. Now I didn't want to drill out my cross member, so I got a set of these. Now these basically fit into the spherical bearings and they allow you to use the original sized bolt, which means that you don't need to re-drill the cross member. And these top hats actually slot into the spherical bearing, whereas these ones don't, because the hole in the spherical bearing is the same size as the bolt. Yeah, I've got these type of adapters fitted to the Mark 1 when I fitted the same style track control arms to that, so yeah, I'd rather not re-drill the cross member. Also, I've decided to use Superflex bushes instead of these Polysport ones. I really like Superflex bushes. The Mark 1 has basically got all Superflex bushes, apart from a couple of things that I couldn't get at the time in Superflex, and I got Flowflex, but that was only like the diff bump stop and the axle bump stops, things like that. So yeah, I'm going to be using these instead. And the track control arms also come with these rubber boots that basically go over the rose joints to protect them from dirt and whatever. Now everything I've mentioned here, apart from these adapters that go in here, have been supplied by my friends at Burton Power, and I'll leave a link to their website in the description of this video. These adapters are actually available from Motorsport Tools, and I'll leave a link to their website in the description as well. Another thing I've got myself is a new set of castle nuts, washers and split pins for where the anti-roll bar comes through the track control arm, and these came off of eBay. I also got myself a pair of rear wheel bearings, which will need to be pressed on. I can't fit those myself, and I'm not going to get those fitted until I've changed the diff gasket, because as I've mentioned before, the diff on MOREDOOR is leaking because the gasket broke when I put the freshly rebuilt LSD in. So yeah, I'm going to change this gasket before I actually get the half shaft bearings done. And those bits were also bought from Burton Power, but I thought I may as well go ahead and get myself a brand new set of nuts that hold the diff to the axle casing, and these came off of eBay. And I'll leave a link to the eBay listings in the description of this video as well. Now, I'm probably not going to be doing the diff gasket today, to be honest. I want to crack on with this front suspension stuff. And the first thing I need to do is remove the anti-roll bar, which I've done so many times in videos on the channel, so I'm not going to film it. But if you are new to the channel, basically got 4 bolts either side here, and then the castle nut on the back where it comes through the track control arm. And just to go off topic for a sec, I've noticed that I've got quite a bad leak coming from the twin choke carburettor. Not sure exactly where it's coming from. It looks like there's loads of fuel around this area, which may be just coming out of where the fuel filter is, I don't know. But there's also loads around the back, and when I first got here, it seemed to be running off the bottom of this spindle, I suppose you'd call it. So, but I'm not going to worry about that today. All right, anti-roll bar's off. Before I go any further, I'm just going to crack this nut off and then just snug it back up again. And then I know that later on, when I go to change these track rod ends, I'll be able to get that undone easily. Right, now I'm going to split this ball joint, which is where the track control arm meets the strut itself. I'm just going to undo that bolt, and then track control arm's free. Right, so now the strut is only actually held onto the car by the top mount. What I'm going to do is I'm going to undo this nut and then just drop the strut and leave the top mount attached to the car, and then remove the top mount and fit the new one. But before I do that, I'm going to remove the brake caliper and just tie it up out the way, and then that way it won't be hanging and putting strain on the brake pipe. Now, what I forgot to do first is release the brake pipe from the strut here. And I actually leave this cable tie attached to the car at all times, just so that it's there for whenever I need to do this. So now I'm going to undo this nut and obviously hold the strut from underneath so it don't fall on the floor. So yeah, you can see the way that these work. You undo these bolts here, and then you're able to move the point at where the strut comes through in to add negative camber, or out to add positive camber. The good thing about these actually is if you put the studs in a different orientation, see they've got extra holes, you can actually set them up so that they can adjust the caster instead of the camber. So if you move the top of the strut backwards, you're gaining caster, and vice versa, the reverse. And caster's good because when you're drifting, the more caster you have, the more self-steering characteristics the car's going to have. So when you need to transition from one bend to another, you can literally just let go of the steering wheel and it will steer for you. The bad thing about excessive caster is that the steering will be too heavy. But I've actually got a solution to adding extra caster, which I'm thinking about doing to the car. So we'll see. Because the car's running a twin cam style anti-roll bar, it will have more caster than it otherwise would have. So, you know, the self-steering characteristics have been improved slightly. And I can probably demonstrate what the problem with these was. It's really hard to turn this spherical bearing. Whereas this one, you know, I can put my finger in there and the bearing is actually spinning. It's not my finger spinning, the bearing's spinning. Whereas with this one, it just doesn't. Now, I did find some information online since I bought these. It was only the other day, that says you can put a bolt through it with a washer either side that's just the right size of this spherical bearing, and then put a nut on the back of it, and then put the bolt in a drill and just spin the bearing round until it loosens up. Apparently that can only be done with nylon lined spherical bearings, and I don't know whether this is nylon lined or not, but these are just really cheap universal top mounts that then basically get re-drilled to suit whatever car you're using them on. I think some modern cars actually have bearings, like roller bearings or needle bearings on the strut, which then would mean that it doesn't matter that this doesn't spin. So maybe these are designed for applications like that. I don't know. I definitely won't be selling these to anyone else because they're not great. Maybe in the future on another car I might be able to try that trick to get these to move a bit better, but yeah, for now I'm going to go with these much better quality top mounts. Although I got these from Burton Power, they're actually manufactured by another company called Group 4 Fabrications, really good company in Ireland. They're the ones that actually made the fuel tank that I've got fitted to Esther, my Mk2 Escort. So yeah, these should be sweet. And these have got like a rubber bit in there, so they're a bit more suited to the road, they'll be a bit more forgiving. Now to fit these to the inner wing, I'm just going to use these M8 times 20mm bolts, and I've got these M8 penny washers and M8 spring washers as well. And I'll fully torque those up once the car's back on the ground later. Alright, so now it's time to lift the strut back into place. I'm going to remove this old adapter and then put the new ones on. I'm guessing the thin one goes at the bottom because otherwise it will raise the suspension too much. In fact, yeah, I can tell. Once this has gone through the top mount, this one goes on top. This hole is big enough to slide around this part, but this hole will stop there. And I'll worry about torquing that up once the car's back on the ground. Right, I think I'm going to put the new track rod end on now. Now, when I line these up, they're actually different length, so it's pretty pointless me counting the turns. But if I put the ball joint in the same place and then move that nut up so that it's in line with the new track rod end, then that should be somewhere thereabouts. At the end of the day, I'm changing so many bits on the suspension on the front, the alignment's going to be out anyway, but I want to try and get somewhere near as a base point. Alright, I think I'll put the brake caliper back on now. Now, because this car's running vented discs, like a Capri would have, you have to put these spacers in between the caliper and where they mount. Yeah, what I normally do is thread one bolt in, a couple of threads without the spacer, and then focus on getting the spacer in the bottom one. But this time, obviously, make sure you put the bolt through the locking tab as well. Just literally get that in just a couple of threads, and then you can do the top one with the locking tab thing and the spacer. Right, time to get this track control arm on now. Just check it's the right side because they are sided. Now I've got to try and get this rubber boot onto this rose joint without it splitting. It'd be a lot easier if I could heat it up, but it's freezing around here and I don't have any heating, so just take this out. Right, so apart from putting the anti-roll bar back on and torquing everything up, that is this side complete. There's the top mount. Yeah, it's all quite simple stuff really, didn't cause me much trouble. I'm going to crack on with the other side now and I'll chat to you afterwards. Right, so got the parts fitted to the other side now, and I was actually able to change this top mount without removing the caliper and tying it up there. I just held a jack underneath here and then just dropped it out of the inner wing enough just so that I could get the old mount off and the new one in. All I've got to do now is put the anti-roll bar back on, and I'm just going to put the new bushes onto it first. And the good thing about the Superflex bushes, it comes with the assembly lube, because last time when I was using these bushes I just used multi-purpose grease, which isn't the right stuff really. Not actually sure where the grease should go, to be honest, so I'm just going to put it inside and outside of the tube. And what you can do with these is just wind them out, just to make it easier. Because the car's going to need to get aligned anyway, so wind these out and add some camber. Then the anti-roll bar is a lot easier to get in to the track control arms. And also, because these are rose jointed, you've got a bit of movement backwards and forwards. Alright, so got the anti-roll bar back on. So I'm going to let it down now so that I can torque everything up correctly with the car on its wheels. And the alignment is really badly towing in. I've basically wound the track control arms out a little bit, the same both sides, and as you add camber it actually adds toe in. That's just the way they work, so I'll worry about the alignment once I've torqued everything up. Right, so I put it all back together and I was torquing everything up, and the final thing I went to torque up was the nut on the top of this strut, and it wouldn't go all the way down. Basically what I've done is I've left the old adapter on the strut that was for these top mounts. So what that means is not enough of the thread of that shock absorber is poking through for me to get the nut on. So this side I've pretty much got to start again, and the sun has already started going down. My battery's dying on my GoPro as well, so it's all going wrong. It was all going so well and now it's going wrong. Alright, so I've got the top spring cup off of that strut, and I think that's the adapter. As I thought, I left it on. It's proper mangled. And this one's a little bit mangled in there. Might have to just file that out quickly. I was actually able to get that spring cup off the strut with everything still together, which is going to save me a bit of time. But yeah, I'm still going to be finishing this job in the dark. It's not the first time, won't be the last. Right, put it all back together now in the dark. That's better. Plenty of threads poking through now. Hello, so it's now the next day and I'm just heading off to work. As you can see, I did manage to get MOREDOOR back together last night in the dark. Had to do an alignment by eye in the dark. It's not too bad, to be honest. It was tram lining a bit, following all the bumps. I don't know if maybe I've got a little bit too much camber. I need to get it aligned properly. The front track is now slightly wider. Obviously before, the camber was adjusted by bringing the top of the wheel in, whereas now it's adjusted by pushing the bottom of the wheel out. So got a slightly wider track at the front, which could improve handling. As for the carb leak, before I left the garage last night, I tightened up the fuel filter and I tightened up these screws at the top, because when I got to the garage yesterday, it was all fuel all over this. I don't know if it's coming out of here, because it was definitely running off of there. But yeah, just in general, there's loads of fuel everywhere. I'm going to wipe that stain up there and then see if it's any better when I get to work. Steering's actually lighter now. I explained before that with the old top mounts I had to have this nut loose because the spherical bearings weren't able to turn properly. Well, now with these top mounts, even though it's all tightened up properly, the steering is lighter than it was before. You can actually buy these same top mounts with roller bearings rather than spherical bearings, but they're obviously not as suitable if you're going to be running excessive camber, because a roller bearing doesn't like to have any sideways pressure on it, whereas a spherical bearing is able to rotate that way as well as spin. So anyway, I'm going to be late for work as usual, so I better jump in MOREDOOR and make my way there. I obviously still need to find time to do my diff gasket because I wasn't able to do that yesterday, and I'm probably not going to film it, to be honest. It's not a very nice job, especially in this weather. On my break time today, I'm going to be going to my garage to work on the new ST170 engine, and that'll probably be the next video you see. And next weekend, I'm hoping to go back up to Northampton, see my parents, and obviously finalise the job on my mum's Focus. And next Sunday, I'm hoping to attend a meet that's being organised by another YouTuber, Adam Ivel. So for now, I'm going to end this video here. Thanks so much to everyone for your continued support on my channel. I really appreciate it. If you did think this video was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe and activate the notification bell to be kept right up to date with any other videos that I post in the future. Make sure you check out my Facebook and my Instagram, and I'll leave the links you need for that in the description, along with my email address for anyone who wants to contact me. And I've actually recently changed my email address, but I'll still get the messages that go to the old one anyway. So until next time, thanks for watching. Yeah, carburetor's still leaking.